Thank you. I'm a little feistier than I was coming in here after listening to Carol Davis. I first walked in, I was a bit entranced by the sparkly fabulous.
I love that flag.
Is this Bert's handiwork?
That's mine.
Oh, okay. Reminds me of some of the bedazzling I did in high school.
I love shiny things. I'm blonde.
Lonely existence. So it's an interesting time coming off of the April 7th spring elections, the local elections, and with an eye towards the 2016 general elections. And I think what you see going on, and what you will see going on in the 2016 election, is a dynamic that we saw play itself out in the local elections, and is playing itself out in the Republican and Democrat primaries for president as well. And so I just want to explore this a little bit with you to kind of inform what I think is happening, and so what our market opportunity is to elect candidates from local office up to the President of the United States who are committed to the economic liberty policy agenda. So think about this on the left. Let's start with the left. Even though Tiny Dancer was reelected, something very interesting for the Tiny Dancers, little ballerina. Even though he was reelected, something very interesting happened, right? Not just the first runoff in the history of the Chicago mayoralty, but also a real rejection from the radical left netroots and grassroots of kind of the corporatist left portion of the party, kind of represented by Ron, represented nationally to a large extent by Hillary. People rejecting the marriage on the left, really rejecting the marriage. Now, again, I understand they're unbounded by their own hypocrisy, but at least from their perspective, they are rejecting the marriage of big business and big government. They are rejecting the idea that government is there to be used as a sword or a shield by the powerful, depending on their interests at any given point in time. And that's really what the Chuy Garcia candidacy represented. And I mean, think about this too. I mean, you have really kind of a journeyman, amorphous, fungible politician in Chicago who took Rahm, with the President of the United States coming into Stump Forum, with all the Hollywood friends, with all the corporate money from Chicago, both kind of center-left and center-right, flowing into his campaign coffers. I mean, he took him the distance. That's a very interesting dynamic, and it points to this idea that people who play by the rules in this country, and in this state, and in the city of Chicago even, are sick and tired of being scammed by a government that they finance. So essentially, the choice, the kind of the binary construct I see developing is people who play by the rules versus people who have a ruling class mentality. And you see this on the left, and you see this on the right. Why do 70% of Democrat primary voters want a challenger in the primary to Hillary Clinton? Because they will go along, they will be part of the inertia that pushes her to the nomination. But if there was a choice, they would be interested in hearing that choice. Thus, the Herculean efforts to try and make rather unimpressive, nondescript candidates like Martin O'Malley something to be interested in. That tells you something about an internal fissure on the left, and that's something that we should take advantage of. Because as we saw in Illinois, sometimes things get bad enough where people will consider doing things they wouldn't ordinarily do, voting for candidates they wouldn't ordinarily vote for. Because if that didn't happen in Illinois, Bruce Rauner wouldn't be our governor. So it absolutely can't happen, and I think the opportunity is growing in size, not shrinking. Now on the right, the same thing is happening. In our party, the same thing is happening. And for all of the clarion calls about the death of the Tea Party, we should start by saying in the municipal election just passed, Tea Party did particularly well in supporting candidates who opposed the ruling class mentality in the College of DuPage races, in the U46 races. The Tri-County Tea Party, Rick Newton and his crew did a great job, and they should be congratulated for what they did. But it doesn't need to be so egregious as, the COD is the obvious one, because it's very easy to understand taxpayer financing, hunting club membership for a community college president, and how ridiculous that is. Why COD needs a 3-star Michelin rated restaurant on its campus. It's just so preposterous that there was no argument to the other side. But even where there is more nuance, where there is more debate, the same dynamic persists. And so, to my mind, that explains, frankly, how fast Scott Walker has gotten out of the gate. Now, I'll admit, not everybody may be a Scott Walker fan, or may not be. I am firmly in Scott Walker's camp, and look at how he was treated and how the public responded to his initial treatment as he introduced himself, beyond the cheese curtain to the rest of the nation. What was one of the first things that the Washington Press Corps went after? Is Scott Walker qualified to be president? He doesn't have a college degree. Right. He left Marquette to work. That's a story that limousine liberals and G5 leftists in Washington and the Eastern Seaboard, they can't understand. But what they found out as they reported those stories and were ridiculed appropriately is that's something that a good chunk of the rest of America can understand without question. And so the more they attack Scott Walker, the more they question his credentials despite his executive record, despite his electoral success in a state that Barack Obama won twice, despite his electoral success in Milwaukee County, which demographically, in terms of voter registration, Republican to Democrat, is very similar to Cook. And Scott Walker was Milwaukee County executive before he was governor of Wisconsin. This is somebody that has incredible political skill and has established the template to translate political skill into legislative accomplishments, moving Wisconsin to places nobody thought Wisconsin would be just 5 short years ago. And so the opportunity, as Bill Buckley famously said, he would rather be governed by the first 1,000 people out of the Boston telephone book than the entire faculty at Harvard. And this is where the country is. They are in on the joke that Bill Buckley was telling 35 years ago. And Scott Walker is kind of an example that, the joke is on the Washington Press Corps and the other liberal elites. And so how does that translate for the opportunities in Illinois? Because let's be honest with ourselves. Hillary maybe yesterday, as Marco Rubio said, but she is going to be impactful on Illinois races. And my focus is on state legislative races, in particular in Illinois. And she will be impactful. Her name being on the ballot, if that's what comes to pass, and that's what it looks like it will be impactful. So how do we get people to continue to do what they started to do in November of 2014, which is make different choices at the ballot box than they had been making for the previous 15 years? Well, I think the answer really comes down to a simple aphorism that a retired ad exec named Simon Sinek came up with. He's an ad exec from Ogilvy Mather. And he explained through his expertise in the industry how people make purchasing decisions, whether it's for a consumer electronics product or a candidate for office. And it really boils down to this straightforward statement. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So if you don't answer the predicate why question, people aren't interested in the what or the how, what you're going to do or how you're going to do it. You never get there. And if you think about how we talk, the conservative grassroots, as well as Republican candidates generally, how we talk a lot of times, listen to candidates. They will often tell you what they're going to do. They're going to tell you kind of who they are, where they went to school, all the their Horatio Alger nonsense. And then they're going to tell you what they're going to do if they're elected. We're going to cut taxes. We're going to reduce unnecessary spending. On it, we're going to advance school choice, on and on. How we're going to do it? We're going to build non-traditional coalitions. We're going to work with the other side. We're going to kidnap Mike Madigan. How they're going to do what they say they will do if elected. But you never get to the rationale. Why are you here? Why did you run for office? Why are you here on a Wednesday evening when your neighbors and friends and colleagues are not? People want to know what is motivating you. And so that's the question that Republicans need to answer, conservatives need to answer first. And it's not limited to candidates. You're all opinion leaders. You all have circles of influence that I can't touch. People who rely on your opinions. much more than they do some guy blathering on the radio or a candidate they've seen in a mail piece but they don't really know. They rely on you. So change the conversation by initiating it from a different point when you have the opportunity as these races pick up. That's what we have to do, and you have to answer the why question. And the great thing about answering the why question is there is no talking point. There is no singular why answer. I'm a Republican in Illinois because I want Illinois to be #1 in the nation in the provision of services to the developmentally disabled. Because I think that is a mirror in terms of our humanity. And right now, as many of you know, Denise certainly knows, Illinois is 51st out of 50. 51st, it's only 50 states. But we're also behind the District of Columbia. 51st out of 50. So the big lie that's been told by Republicans and Democrats to this state for decades is that they're interested in helping people who need state services through no fault of their own, and they're not. Because after all of the money that has been borrowed and spent and taxed and spent, if they were, we wouldn't be 51st out of 50, would we? So that is a big lie, and it's a lie that I want undone. That's what motivates me. Oh, one other reason, I want every child to have access to the same kind of quality schools at the K through 12 level that I had access to growing up thanks to my parents' sacrifices, so that someday they can grow up to have a phony baloney job on the radio where they work 20 hours a week for a lot of money, just like I do. I think they're good reasons, but they don't have to be your reasons. You know, you could be someone in agriculture. I'm a farmer, and I know that every farmer in Illinois feeds 153 people, and I think that's a great thing that Illinois feeds the world. And so I'm interested in making sure we protect agribusiness, which is our #1 business in this state. Great answer. That's a good answer. I'm a small business owner with fewer than 5 employees, like another 1.1 million small business enterprises in this state, and we're the backbone of job creation and innovation and the entrepreneurial spirit in this state. And so I'm interested in policies that promote that entrepreneurial spirit, that productive risk-taking behavior. That's a good why. But you have to have the why first before you tell me your 5-point plan and how you're going to implement it. And if we do that, I'm telling you right now, we have a great mission field in this state, even if Hillary is on the ballot. There are 20 state house districts and 10 state senate districts that Bruce Rauner won in November that are currently held by Democrats. Now, we may be in the super minorities in both chambers, and we are. The Senate Republicans may be able to hold their caucus meetings in a telephone booth if those things still existed, and they could. But we're not that far away from certainly getting out of the super minority, particularly in the House, and making our way